So we're starting on 136. Down the bottom of 136, if you have a look just on this side of 136, we get the first bit of imagery that really reflects on prehistoric visualization, metaphor, and the landscape. So it's really, really important to have a look at the landscape. So this first bit, going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world, when vegetation rioted on the earth and the big trees were kings. An empty stream, a great silence, an impenetrable forest. The air was warm, thick, heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of sunshine. The long stretches of the waterway ran on, deserted into the gloom of overshadowed distances. On silvery sandbanks, hippos and alligators sunned themselves side by side. The broadening waters flowed through a mob of wooded islands. You lost your way on that river as you would in a desert, and butted all day long against shoals, trying to find the channel till you thought yourself bewitched and cut off from everything you had known once, somewhere far away in another existence, perhaps. All right? Now, this part is what we're looking for. All right? This idea of him being detached from that other world, the other existence. Okay? From everything you had known once. All right, and then you've got this other bit of language here, finding yourself bewitched. So what we're talking about here is the effect of the landscape. On the pilgrims. All right, what it's actually doing to them. All right, and obviously all this stuff that we have at the bottom of 136, you get that prehistoric description. So a prehistoric description of the landscape. So that's at the bottom of 136, right? And it just continues over into 137 at the top there. Now this prehistoric visualization continues and it starts to spread into the metaphor that we're talking about when you turn over the page. So if you go then to 139, halfway down 139, this section here is what we're going to be looking at. So halfway down 139, so it's the next page. The earth seemed unearthly. We are accustomed to look upon the shackled form of a conquered monster, but there you could look at a thing monstrous and free. It was unearthly. And the men were, no, they were not inhuman. We'll come back to that in a second. Well, you know, that was the worst of it. This suspicion of their not being inhuman. It would come slowly to one. They howled and leaped and spun and made horrid faces, but what thrilled you was just the thought of their humanity like yours, the thought of your remote kinship with this wild and passionate uproar. Ugly, yes, it was ugly enough, but if you were man enough, you would admit to yourself that there was in you just the faintest trace of a response to that terrible frankness of that noise, a dim suspicion of there being a meaning in it which you so remote from the night of first ages, could comprehend. And why not? The mind of a man is capable of anything because everything is in it. All the past as well as all the future. All right? So this first part of this passage continues to reinforce that idea, and the way that Conrad does it is through this metaphor of what the actual environment is. All right? It's a monster. All right? He's saying that we are accustomed to look at the shackled form of a conquered monster. The conquered monster is, you know, civilized cities, civilized landscapes. And they've been conquered because there are roads, there are buildings, there are signs, there are people, things that tell people which way they have to go, rules that govern how they behave in those environments. Okay, that landscape has been shackled, it's been conquered. All right, but here in the jungle, they're looking at something which is monstrous and free. So they're looking at something that is pre that civilization, and that's actually what is lending towards their inability to maintain their civilization, right? Maintain their behavior. So that's the first part of it. It's talking about landscape. The second part talks about the actual people, right? We've had this discussion before, but Marlowe is making that realization that they are just like him. They are people, right? You get to this, they're not being inhuman, they're humans. There is a remote kinship. We have a relationship here. Okay? And although it's ugly, he's saying that nobody would deny, there being a dim suspicion or a faintest trace that they can understand these people, that they can relate to them, these people from the night of first ages. So it's reinforcing that idea that that darkness that they see in the savages is actually inherent in everybody. Okay, that's the point to make there, right? The darkness they see in the savages is inherent in everyone. And you've got the evidence right here, okay? Because everything is in it, all the past as well as all of the future. The mind of a man is capable of anything. Okay? So quickly make a note of that. That reinforces the fact that the line between barbarity and civility, it's finite. All right? And that is then reinforced with this next section. All right? What was there after all? Joy, fear, sorrow, devotion, valor, rage, who can tell? But truth. Truth stripped of its cloak of time, right? That idea of a cloak of time. So the only thing that's different between these two environments is time, right? London has had time to become civilized. Europe has had time to become civilized. Africa has not. Let the fool gape and shudder. The man knows and can look on without a wink, but he must at least be as much of a man as these on the shore. Again, making the relationship here. He must meet that truth of his own true stuff, with his own inborn strength. Principles won't do. Acquisitions, clothes, pretty rags that would fly off at the first good shake. No, you want a deliberate belief. An appeal to me in this fiendish row is there. So this is him again shifting away and starting to talk to the Nelly, to the crew on the Nelly, sorry. But this part here is him reinforcing how superficial things like objects are, how things like clothes are. They're not going to hold together your civility, right? Your own determination is the only thing that's going to hold that back, right? So the frailty of objects is reinforced in that last bit there, okay? And so in these two respective passages, you get that prehistoric visualization, you get that metaphor for the actual forest itself, but you also then get those ideas of what colonization actually is. It's actually just, as he's put here, a cloak of time, right? And that line between civility and barbarity is finite because they're actually inherent within each other. Okay.